Good evening. Right outside our doors is Yonge-Dundas Square, one of the most popular public spaces in the county, an inclusive hub of activity which has hosted everyone from hard rockers to gangster rappers. But a Christian festival has been denied its permit. Our Ana Vlachos with the controversial decision and the religious group's fight for what it believes is freedom of expression.
She's told me one of the main reasons that we're not allowing you guys to use the event next year was because you guys were praising Jesus and you guys are singing about songs about Jehovah, and that really shocked me.
It's a music festival that Voices of the Nations, a non-profit Christian group, has been holding at Yonge-Dundas Square for the last 5 years. But organizers say they were denied their permit for next year's event because during their festival in August, their songs praised Jesus and God.
It's unexpected coming from an event manager and coming from a city representative itself.
Given that it's a Christian event, I didn't think that was going to be a problem. That is a big problem.
Oyelami says this is a recording of a phone conversation between him and the Yonge-Dundas Square event manager, which took place last week. Oyelami says he was told performers were proselytizing, trying to convert people to Christianity. Oyelami says last year, Yonge-Dundas Square management did raise concerns about the Voices of the Nations event, saying that they were people on stage who spoke and preached about God. So this year, Oyelami says, they stuck with just the singing.
What do you mean? Do we mean speaking, or just singing?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or it's singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
The Yonge-Dundas Square performance and display policy does state performances displays must not advocate a specific political or religious point of view for the purpose of proselytizing.
We're all believers, that's pretty much it. We're nothing to try to convert anyone, we're trying to change anyone's mind.
These are some of the past letters of endorsement the organization says it has received from then Councillor Doug Ford and Anna Bailau, asking for the rental fees to be waived for Yonge-Dundas Square.
Everyone has the right to do that, to proclaim their beliefs, whether you are an artist or a religion. It doesn't matter that it's a public square.
Voices of the Nations started this petition 2 days ago, asking for the mayor's help and for Yonge-Dundas event management to reverse its decision. The petition has received 15,000 signatures so far.
To me, this is a violation of our rights.
Repeated emails and calls to local councillor and YDS board member Kristen Wong-Tam were not answered as of airtime. We reached out to the mayor's office and were told they're looking into the matter. Voices of the Nation says they're going to see what happens over the next few days, and if nothing changes, will consider legal action. At Yonge-Dundas Square, Ana Vlachos, City News.
And in response to our story, management for Yonge-Dundas Square released this statement tonight saying the staff at Yonge-Dundas Square are not at liberty to publicly discuss confidential client information related to individual events held at the square. The organizers of Voices of Nations have been advised why a permit has not been granted for 2016. This is not an issue of bias based on beliefs. Many faith-based groups have and continue to use the square without issue.
I'm here in the square with an update on a story we first brought you yesterday. A Christian group says that it's been banned from using this square for an upcoming music festival, all because of its praise for Jesus. So today I spoke to a city councillor who also sits on the Yonge-Dundas Management Board, and she claims the ban has nothing to do with religious discrimination.
Them now saying that that Yonge-Dundas Square is anti-Christian, I'm saying is completely baseless.
Praise the Lord, and Jehovah is our only God. It's words like these organizers of a Christian music festival believe is the reason why their event has been silenced at Yonge-Dundas Square. The festival that's been going on for 5 years in the heart of our city is no longer being issued a permit. Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam, who sits on the square's management board, says there's no discrimination here. The issue is proselytizing, and it's forbidden in the contract. The behavior is defined as trying to persuade people to join a religion, cause, or group.
Organizers know exactly why that we are asking them to not come back to the square. This has been clearly documented.
That's why you don't worry.
And here's a prime example, a stone's throw from the city's venue on public property. A man preaches to people passing by with a Bible in hand.
That we rent the square to a number of religious-based organizations such as the Church of Scientology, Yonge Street Mission for their Easter Sunrise Festival. All of that takes place with these organizations following the rules.
That is a big problem.
We first brought you this story yesterday. Organizers of the group Voices of the Nation claim this recording is of a phone call with a manager of Yonge-Dundas Square, and it's their song lyrics being targeted.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or it's singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
But when we asked the city what exactly this group did to break the rules, we could not get a straight answer. What kind of behavior does the city consider proselytizing?
I mean, if you're the definitions, I'm not going to speak specifically to what has transpired.
They have people going around and getting people off the street and trying to pull them in and give them stuff to read. And
so because I'm not at liberty to speak about those details.
3 years ago, similar wording on a controversial poster was allowed to hang just below the square in the Dundas subway station. It read, "There is no God but Allah. Discover Islam in 85 languages." Is that not considered similar to what the Christian group might be saying in their song?
So the rules of engagement here at Yonge-Dundas Square are contractual. So therefore, if anyone is renting the square, they have to follow the rules of the square.
Now, Councillor Wong-Tam tells me that the group had been given 2 warnings about prohibited behavior before pulling the plug on the permit. And tonight, organizers of Voices of the Nations tell me that they're still confused over what exactly they did wrong.
More anti-Christian bigotry from Toronto city bureaucrats, and again it centers around Yonge and Dundas Square, the outdoor square right in the downtown core. For some background, Yonge and Dundas Square is like Canada's version of Times Square in New York City. Sometimes it has concerts or festivals going on open to the public, but most of the time it's just an open block with pedestrians and hot dog carts and buskers. There's some religion down there too. As we've shown you before, there's a permanent booth on the sidewalk where Muslim men hand out free Korans to passers-by and try and convert them to Islam. As we've reported, that same booth also hands out books advising Muslim men how to beat their wives if they don't obey them. So it's a real free speech zone. Oh, except for this guy, Reverend David Lynn. Remember him? He would stand on the street corner not 50 feet from the Koran wife-beating guys and preach his Christian mission, sing some Christian songs, until one day the cops came, seized his equipment, and charged him with illegal busking.
You can sing without the mic, that's fine, but you can't have the amplifier.
Can you show me the Bible?
Sure I can, but I can also write you the 104. Do you want that? And I'm going to seize your hand. Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw?
Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw though?
Okay.
Well, that was pretty obviously anti-Christian censorship, charging a Christian pastor with illegal busking as if he were a commercial singer and seizing his equipment, but naturally not touching the nearby Koran kiosk. Well, our viewers crowdfunded the hiring of a civil liberties lawyer, Sonia Schickman, to take Reverend Lynn's case to court, to fight for him using Charter of Rights arguments of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And the bureaucratic bullies backed down. It was a victory. And the anti-Christian censors of Yonge and Dundas Square had a defeat. But look, they're government bureaucrats. They're like the Terminator. They don't give up. And now they're back. And here's the latest news. As I mentioned, Yonge and Dundas doesn't just have buskers and hot dog carts. They do real concerts, and their website invites all manner of artists to apply to use the official concert space, including these guys called Voices of the Nations. Here they are doing a free concert earlier this year.
I have heard a sound coming on the winds, changing hearts and minds, healing brokenness.
By the way, they've had the same concert there for 5 years. People love it, and even if they don't, so what? Free country. That's exactly what Yonge and Dundas Square is. It's a public square. If you don't like the music, keep walking. Within half a block, you won't even hear it over the noise of downtown Toronto traffic. Well, here's the thing. Voices of the Nations sings songs about, well, brace yourselves now, They sing about Jesus. Yo, I know it's shocking. I mean, you saw that clip of their concerts. It's shocking stuff. I'm joking, but Toronto City Hall isn't. They hated it, just like they hated Reverend David Lynn. So this year, when Voices of the Nations applied for another permit to do their concert at Yonge-Dundas Square, they were turned down. And when they asked why, they were told it's because they sang songs about Christianity. And that, according to the bureaucrats, was illegal proselytizing, as in an illegal attempt to convert someone to their religion. So, having a booth specifically for the purpose of converting people to Islam and handing out Qurans and wife-beating guides is fine under the no converting people policy, but singing a song in a concert that happens to praise Jesus, well, that's illegal in Canada. Now, when I first heard about this, I have to admit I was skeptical. Did a city bureaucrat really say that this choir was banned because their songs were too Jesus-y? I mean, come on. That just sounds too far-fetched. Can you imagine a bureaucrat telling the gay pride parade they were too pro-gay to use a public square, or a Muslim group they were too Muslim, or a Jewish group was too Jewish, or a black group was too black? It just sounded incredible, too far-fetched. But the person who applied for the permit had a sense of what was going on. I mean, he could tell they were about to be blocked. So he recorded the phone call. I'm going to play it for you now. This phone call was made by Leye Oyelani, the events coordinator for Voices of the Nations Choir. As you can tell from his name, he's a new Canadian. He's black, by the way. Now, these bureaucrats would never keep someone named Mr. Oyelani out of this public square because he's an immigrant or because he's black. That kind of discrimination would be shocking. But they kept him out because he's also Christian. That kind of discrimination is the new normal. Here, take a listen to the phone call. He's talking to Natalie Bellman, the manager of events for this city-owned public square. Just listen.
Okay, well, I've already advised Peter that we're not going to be permitting you guys this year for next year because of the proselytizing on the square. And that's a big issue for us. I know that in the past years we've had discussions with you, or at least my predecessor did.
Oh, really?
Had meetings with Peter with regards to the proselytizing, and outlined very specifically what was allowed and what is not allowed on the square, and that was not adhered to this year.
Oh, Natalie, sorry, just to clarify, did we prophesize this year at the event?
Yes.
We did?
Yes. Your performers did.
One of the performers did? Okay, in terms of prophesizing, what do you mean? Like, do we mean like speaking, like, or just singing? Or...
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or it's singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
Okay, so are you saying that, is this definite, or you
no,
can still reapply?
This is done.
So it's
you
definite.
guys were given warnings after last year and spoken to, and nothing changed. And you were spoken to on site and weren't willing to make any changes during the proselytizing. So no, we can't risk putting you back up on stage again.
I have to tell you, if I didn't hear it with my own ears, I would not believe it. Anyone can sing in that square except Christians. Anyone can proselytize in that square except Christians. And even just singing the words, praise Jesus, is considered illegal proselytizing. This is outrageous. Now, we've left messages for Natalie Bellman, the woman on the phone, asking her to explain herself. And we've invited other city bureaucrats and politicians, too. I'd like to hear their explanation for this. Now, they've refused to explain themselves. They refused to answer to the public or to taxpayers. Instead, they hired a fancy PR firm who sent us this brief email claiming there was no discrimination and all sorts of religious and political groups used Yonge-Dundas Square. Well, yeah, that's pretty much my point. All sorts of religious and political causes are welcome, except one. Look, I know anti-Christian bigotry when I see it, and it seems to happen a lot in Yonge-Dundas Square. We've fought these anti-Christian bigots before with Reverend David Lynn, and we won. I'm pleased to say that our friend John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms has joined the legal fight, firing off a scorching legal letter to the bureaucrats on behalf of Voices of the Nations, demanding that they lift their ban on Christian music. You can see a copy of their letter on our website at www.antichristian.ca. Well, that's a fight I want to be a part of. If you want to learn more about this case and sign a petition to the City of Toronto to demand they end their anti-Christian bigotry, click here or visit antichristian.ca. And do more. Join with me in helping to cover the legal expenses of the fight. You can chip in at the same website here to help level the playing field. But we're not done. Click here to watch my interview with John Carpe, the lawyer who leads the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He'll tell us the legal case against the city bureaucrats and how he intends to fight. Well, it's another attack on Christians literally in the public square, and it's again Yonge-Dundas Square. For some background on this case, click here to watch the video introduction. But joining us now via Skype from Calgary is one of Canada's leading civil liberties public interest lawyers, our friend John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. John, welcome to the show, and thank God you're around, because you're actually representing voices of the nations against the Yonge-Dundas Square bullies, aren't you?
It's a real privilege to come across people that are principled and courageous and willing to take a stance, and glad that we're able to help.
Well, I'm so glad. I played the recording of Natalie Bellman, a bureaucrat who runs this public square. And John, I have to tell you, if I didn't hear it with my own ears, I wouldn't have believed it. She outright says, that it's incredible to say it, I wouldn't have believed it, but she says, and you can listen to it in the video over here, she says that the very fact that some of these songs praise Jesus means it is illegal for this choir to have access to this public square, even though they've got Muslim events and Hare Krishna events and gay pride events and every other political or religious stripe under the sun. They have a Muslim kiosk giving out Qurans, but not Christians. Is this anti-Christian bigotry, John?
That's about the only way that you can characterize it. I mean, it'd be nice to think it was something else, but you know, as you've said, they've had rallies for marijuana legalization and people lighting up their joints and every kind of political and religious expression imaginable. And it's a public square, and the city is fine with that. But here, really seem to have a problem with Christian expression.
Now, you've written a very meticulous, your public interest law firm, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, has written a very meticulous 4-page legal demand letter, which you can see on our website. And it cites case law, and it makes compelling legal arguments that what Yonge-Dundas Square is doing is illegal. Can you sum up for our viewers in layman's terms what your legal arguments are?
Well, every person in Canada enjoys a fundamental charter of freedom of religion and freedom of expression. And the Supreme Court has been very clear that the state neutrality, the government's supposed to be neutral as between competing and differing viewpoints, Christianity, atheism, Judaism, whatever. But for the government to be neutral is to allow all of these voices. It's not to try to censor them. And this is where the city of Toronto has just gone totally wrong by saying, well, we're gonna censor this Christian expression because we characterize it as proselytizing, and yet you've got proselytizing for all kinds of other things. So they completely misunderstand that the public square is for all voices, including religious voices, and including all different religious voices, which includes the Christian voice.
We've reached out to the Yonge-Dundas Square bureaucrats, these city bureaucrats. They had a fancy PR agency write back to us saying they're not going to comment, and oh, it wasn't discrimination, and oh, every other religious group uses it. Well, that's sort of the point, is every other religious group is fine. The one group that it seems to be okay to pick on in Toronto is Christians. I don't get it. I mean, we had the same issue with Reverend David Lynn a year ago. He was standing, maybe 50 feet away from the Muslim kiosk, yet he was the one who was charged. I don't get it. Is this the one acceptable bigotry left in Canada anymore, John?
That seems to be the case. I mean, I'd like to disagree with you, but when you look at how the city does allow other religions as well as political expression, I mean, when you have a rally for legalizing marijuana, that's a very definitive political opinion, and so they have no problems with that. And I think we've got a serious problem with this whole thing about proselytizing, because effectively, whether it's pot legalization or gay pride or Islam, you've got people that are promoting a message, and that's fine. But when you say, well, you can't proselytize, that's kind of like saying, well, you can't really express your opinions and try to persuade others that your opinion is the right one or the best one.
Mm-hmm. That's the essence of all these other events. John, I want to ask you one last question. As our viewers know, you and I have worked together in the past. You bring the legal smarts, we bring some of the publicity, but our viewers bring the final piece of the puzzle, and that is to chip in to help pay the bills. Now, you're representing Voices of the Nations. They don't seem like a rich rock and roll band. They are a low-budget Christian choir. Obviously, you need help with your legal fees. If the city doesn't back down, and it doesn't look like they will, I presume your next step will be to take them to court. Can you, without giving away any solicitor-client privilege information, can you give me a very quick roadmap of the legal steps you will take? And can you give me an estimate of your legal budget? Because I would like to call upon our viewers to chip in to help pay your bills. What would the next step be if the city continues to dig in its heels?
Well, in our demand letter to the city, which is posted online, we've given the city until Tuesday, November 10th to reverse its decision. If they don't reverse it, then the only reasonable alternative would be to commence a court action. And of course, Voices of the Nations would have to make a separate decision to go ahead with that. But it looks like if they're not going to reverse their decision by Tuesday, November 10th, then we're going to start a court action. We do have two full-time in-house staff lawyers, and of course that makes our legal services a lot more affordable than what any law firm would charge for it. But I mean, the costs of this court action over the next 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months, it's going to be $5,000 or $10,000 to be able to run that court action using our staff lawyers, which again, it's a lot less than what it would be if you had a regular for-profit law firm that was doing this.
Well, John, I've known you a long time, and I've worked with you on freedom of religion cases and freedom of speech cases. I hereby pledge $100 towards your legal fees, and I'm going to call upon all our viewers who believe in equality before the law, including for Christians in the public square, who believe in freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and yeah, freedom to sing in a public square with a choir, to go to our website, antichristian.ca. Because that's what this is. This is anti-Christian. And we want to, I'm going to see, I can't speak for how our viewers will respond. John, I'm in for $100. I'm going to try and raise $2,500 in the next 48 hours to help cover your bills, because I know the choir doesn't have an extra $2,500 kicking around. And if we can get even more, if we can get $5,000, great. But let's aim for $2,500. Go to antichristian.ca. And John, can you keep us posted? Can we talk when your deadline comes next week? Can we talk again and you can tell us what happens?
Absolutely. Let's chat next week after the Tuesday, November 10th deadline.
John, thanks for fighting for freedom. You're one of so few people in Canada doing it, and we need it now more than ever. Folks, go to antichristian.ca and join me. I'm chipping in $100. I'd like to challenge you to do the same. For the Rebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.
The City of Toronto is refusing to grant a permit for a Christian music festival called the Voices of the Nations to use Yonge-Dundas Square. Rebel Commander Ezra Levant has the story here. So, what's the reason the city has had a sudden change of heart after all these years and with no incidents? Well, let's listen to the City of Toronto's Natalie Bellman explain it here.
Okay, well, I've already advised Peter that we're not going to be permitting you guys this year for next year because of the proselytizing on the square. And that's a big issue for us. I know that in the past years we've had discussions with you, or at least my predecessor did.
Oh, really?
Had meetings with Peter with regards to the proselytizing, and outlined very specifically what was allowed and what is not allowed on the square, and that was not adhered to this year.
Oh, Natalie, sorry, just to clarify, did we prophesize this year at the event?
Yes.
We did?
Yes. Your performers did.
One of our performers did? Okay, in terms of prophesizing, what do you mean? Like, do we mean like speaking like, or just singing, or?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or it's singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
So all of a sudden the city is against proselytizing on city property. And did you catch how condescending she was about the singing? It felt like she was mocking Christianity just a little. So Christian proselytizing, or trying to convert someone to Christianity, is problematic for the city. Well, that just sounds like anti-Christian bigotry to me, given that there's a Muslim kiosk giving out Qurans on the square. So what other events can happen on city property that the city deems to be less problematic than singing praise to Jesus? Well, I looked into it so you don't have to. I wandered into the quagmire of social justice issues in Toronto, and I did not enjoy what I saw. Not that I'd ever stop these people. It's a free country and it's their right to be this way. Now, we all know about Pride Parade. Some of what happens there can be a little less than tasteful, but it's still allowed every year on Toronto public property. But did you know about Toronto's World Naked Bike Ride to protest the world's dependency on oil? Just watch, or don't. I apologize in advance. So there's a bunch of middle-aged hippies cruising around buck naked on bikes, and that's all good with the City of Toronto. And then I found our old friends, the Slut Walkers, and this is their event from 2014. The city had no problem with their nudity, profanity, and just all-around grossness. Again, sorry in advance, these people are just so vulgar. Here. All kidding aside, these people probably need Jesus. I mean, they brought kids to that event. Yuck. Now wait, there's more. The City of Toronto lets the annual 420-day rally happen in Yonge-Dundas. Here. Now, whatever you feel about the marijuana laws in this country, what you saw there is still illegal. And the City of Toronto doesn't break up the 420 rally. It happens every year in Yonge-Dundas. Then there's the Al-Quds Day rally. If you don't know, Al-Quds Day was declared by the late Iranian spiritual leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini as an international day of struggle against Israel. It's basically a march to end Israel with a bunch of violent anti-Semitism rhetoric. Al-Quds Day marchers last year called for the death of Jews. Listen.
We have to give them an ultimatum. You have to leave Jerusalem. We've been negotiating with them for 65 years. We say get out or you're dead.
But guess what? Al-Quds Day had their permit renewed in 2014. And they got a police escort for their march in 2015. So what's my point? There's an anti-Christian bias in the public bureaucracy, and it's not just in Toronto. In Edmonton, the University of Alberta's pro-life group wasn't afforded the same free speech rights on campus as other groups. In Nanaimo, the city council tried to ban Christian groups from using the city-owned conference center. And in Yonge-Dundas, Reverend David Lynn was charged with busking for singing about Jesus. Toronto says no proselytizing, but what they really mean is no free speech for Christians. We all know that. But the good news is, public outcry works. Alberta Pro-Life sued the university. The city of Nanaimo reversed their decision, and Reverend David Lynn's charges were dropped. And we are going to help Voices of the Nations too. Sign our petition, donate to their legal fund, and see Ezra's interview with John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms here at antichristian.ca. Smoke dope, be vulgar, be naked, call for the murder of Jews. But for the love of God, wait, can I even say that anymore? Doesn't matter. For the love of God, just don't talk about Jesus. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid.
Hi Natalie, how you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. I called you yesterday. I'm calling on behalf, what do you call it, as a event manager.
On behalf of who?
I'm calling on behalf of Voice of the Nations.
Okay.
I'm one of the event managers of the that's happening this year or next year. I mean, I was just calling to pretty much confirm our dates for next year, so we can start planning.
I've already had a discussion with Peter regarding next year. Have you spoken with Peter?
No, not briefly, not recently. I was just told to call, so because I'm pretty much coordinating it, so I want to make sure everything was on point.
Okay, well, I've already advised Peter that we're not going to be permitting you guys this year for next year because of the proselytizing on the square. And that's a big issue for us. I know that in the past years we've had discussions with you, or at least my predecessor did.
Oh, really?
Had meetings with Peter with Peter with regards to the proselytizing, and outlined very specifically what was allowed and what is not allowed on the square, and that was not adhered to this year.
Oh, Natalie, sorry, just to clarify, did we prophesize this year at the event?
Yes.
We did?
Yes. Your performers did.
One of the performers did? Okay, in terms of prophesizing, what do you mean? Like, do we mean like speaking, like, or just singing? Or...
Well, it doesn't matter if it's speaking or it's singing. Either way, if you're praising Jesus and praise the Lord and there's no God like Jehovah, that type of thing, that's proselytizing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, okay. Given that it's a Christian event, I didn't think that was gonna be a problem. That is
a big problem. But we have Christian events on the square that don't proselytize.
Well, that's not.
They just want to be there and have a festival and have a Christian festival, but that from the stage, not acceptable.
So when something
that goes against our display policy, performance and display policies, which I believe you guys must be sent. I'm sure that Sarah has supplied that to Peter in the past, because I know that there was a meeting that took place last year before she permitted the event for this year with respect to that. So if that seems to be a large part of your programming, seems to be an integral part of what your mandate is, and given that, I think that you guys should be looking for a different venue, because that's not in line with our policies.
Oh wow! I mean, honestly speaking, I'm kind of shocked. Given that, I mean, I think it's a lyrics. It's part of the lyrics of the song. So it wasn't like intentional. It wasn't like it wasn't a direct what do you call it? Direct thing that the artist was trying to do or something like that. So we didn't think it was going to be a big problem. That's wow. Okay.
Oh, no. Peter was spoken to throughout the evening during the performances this year, and he knew that it was an issue. The event coordinator on site, and I was there, I heard it. The event coordinator that was on site kept telling him that what they were saying from the stage was not in line with our performance policies, and all he kept saying was, well, they're singers, I can't control what they say. Well, no. Your responsibility as the event organizer and as the permitter of the space is to control what they say. Otherwise, you don't schedule them to perform on our stage.
Wow. I mean, I'm okay. I'm kind of shocked at this point right now. But I can try to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, listen, it's a city-owned property. This is city property. You can't. This is our bylaw. It's our policy, and there's no proselytizing allowed on the square. So, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to find another space for your event.
So the next event we can't do a Yonge-Dundas.
No.
All right. What if we were to? Okay. So are you saying that is this definite, or we can still reapply?
This is done.
So it's
you
definite.
guys were given warnings after last year in Fin 2, and nothing changed. And you were spoken to on site and weren't willing to make any changes during the proselytizing. So no, we can't risk putting you back up on stage again.
Oh wow!
And the fact that Peter kept saying, "I can't control what they're saying," and he even went so far as to tell the event coordinator not to put that information in her event report. So knowing that you guys were breaking our policies.
Wow. I mean, honestly speaking, in my perspective, let me just tell you my perspective. If an artist is singing a part of the song that's it's not a direct prophetizing, as in preaching preaching. I mean, when we think about prophetizing, we think about preaching God.
It's walking the line is what it's doing. It's actually getting your message across, but in song instead of in speech. That's the only difference. You're still saying what you're saying. You're doing it in the form of a song.
Oh well, that's it's hard to hear right now from you, but I get where you're coming from. But wow, okay. Well, Natalie, you know what? Thank you very much for your time.
This is David Lynn, the founder of Stop Bullying Christians Now. On Saturday, November 21st at 1 p.m., we will be having a peaceful protest to stand against the discrimination and bullying of Christians in the public square. The battle for Christians' rights and freedoms will be taking place at Toronto's Dundas Square, Saturday, November 21st at 1 p.m. It is wrong to marginalize and discriminate against Christians on public property because of their spiritual orientation. It does not matter. Christians deserve as much dignity and respect as anyone else to market, express, or sing about their faith, and that right has been stripped away by Toronto city officials. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to declare their faith, to be themselves in the public or private setting. It clearly says right here, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religions, even to change their belief, even to manifest it in public, in teaching, practice, or worship. The Charter of Freedom and Rights also guarantees that right. It is the duty of every Christian and its clergy to express their faith in Jesus or Yeshua. And this has been commanded. It's also an essential part of being a human being to express yourself and to invite others into a relationship with you through sharing your own opinions and beliefs. So on November 21st, it's going to be an historic day in Canada where the Christian voices of the nations will stand together, humble ourselves, pray and seek his face, turn from our wicked ways, and publicly proclaim and praise Jesus and Jehovah and that kind of thing, and be proud of our spiritual orientation, and to declare with one voice, stop bullying Christians now. The Toronto Christian community will gather again on Saturday, November 21st at 1 p.m. at Toronto's Dundas Square to say stop bullying Christians now. God bless you and see you there. Bring your praise team, bring your pastors, tell every church member that there will be an important rally. If you don't stand with the Christian community now, forever hold your peace. Our rights and our freedoms are being stripped away. Toronto city officials have the audacity and nerve to say publicly that evangelical Christians who believe in the Word of God are not allowed to proclaim or share their faith or even praise the name of Jesus Christ on a public venue like the Toronto's Dundas Square. This is a shame. This is a shameful behavior. It's blatant discrimination, and we have to stand together as a Christian community. Put your denominational differences aside, and let's stand together with one voice and say, stop bullying Christians now.
Stop bullying Christians now! Stop bullying Christians now!